Simon and the Tolerant Trinity. I have to take you back 14 years, back to another continent, and the story of my father's transgression down under. My father is retired and is a keen follower of cricket. Over the years, my mother has learned to appreciate leather on willow, and she accompanies my father on his various travels. In 2006, and to tie in with celebrating my father's 70th, he decided to treat himself and my mother to a trip to Australia to follow England in their Ashes series against Australia. With Australia having already taken an unbeatable 4-0 lead in the series, they moved on to Sydney for the final match, where they managed to get tickets for the first day's play for the 300th Ashes Test match at the famous Sydney Cricket Ground, the SCG. My father, you should know, is quite gregarious, and during the first day's play he got talking to a fellow Englishman at the bar and struck up quite a rapport. So much so that my mother didn't see him after lunch and spent the afternoon session watching alone as my father and his newfound friend watched the standard England batting collapse together with a Shiraz in hand. My father eventually returned to his seat and my mother at the tea interval, where he enthusiastically said to my mother he had a new chum who had secured tickets for day 2. It transpired that his friend had advised that he would leave a couple of tickets at the gate for them to collect. Well, the next morning my mother and father entered the SCG and made their way to the gate to collect their tickets. My father informed the lady at the booth that they were picking up tickets that had been left for them. The lady asked them for his name and my mother said Hodgson. Well, the lady leafed through a large pile of envelopes in front of her and, having not found anything, replied, "I'm ever so sorry, there are no tickets here under that name." Crestfallen, my father responded with, "Oh, well, not to worry," and began to turn away. But my mother grabbed his arm and said, "Well, maybe he didn't know your surname. Did you tell him your first name?" "Yes," says my dad, "I did. We did introduce ourselves," and with that, turned back to the lady in the booth. "Do you have any tickets in the name of Howard?" Which is my father's name. The lady had been listening to their conversation and again leafed through her pile of envelopes. "Aha!" she says. "Here you go, sir." They thanked her profusely and walked away from the booth, then opened the envelope to discover 2 tickets. They made their way to the relevant gate, presented their tickets to the concierge, were shown into the pavilion where they began to climb some steps. They held their breath as they climbed up to what were pretty good seats. It was the main members' area with a sea of blazers and floral dresses. Being of a certain age, my mother and father were suitably attired, did not feel out of place. After an hour of watching Flintoff reach his half-century, they were aware of a slight hubbub going on behind them. To their right, where they looked, there was a small group of people looking their way and pointing. My mother and father settled back and thought no more of it. Shortly afterwards, a very smartly dressed man with an earpiece approached them and asked to see their tickets. With a creased brow, my father proffered the pair of tickets, and the man then scrutinized them quite intently. Can you come with me, please, mate?" the man asked.
Oh.
Is there something wrong? Sorry. It's standard. Come on. "Is there something wrong?" my mother inquires, and the man just says, "If you could step this way, please, madam."
What?
You don't know where he's
Apparently
from.
we're now in Johannesburg now, are we? Right, okay. "If you could step this way."
With the rest of the members watching intently, they followed the man back up the steps into the pavilion where a small group of people were gathered. One of them was a very smartly dressed man, slightly toothy, bald with silver hair at the sides and a tiny bit familiar. The man asked how the pair had come into possession of the tickets, and my father recounted his adventures the day before and the morning's conversation with the lady at the gate. The explanation brought a combined "Ah" from the group, and the smartly dressed man broke into a smile. He reached out his hand to my father and said, "Hi, John Howard, Australian Prime Minister."
Oh, no.
I'm pleased to meet you. Then David unnecessarily just puts in brackets, "regular accent here, please, Simon." I don't know what that means. Anyway, I just make John Howard sound English. Anyway, my mother was mortified and embarrassed at the same time, and my father immediately launched into a speech to state their innocence. The Australian Prime Minister, for it was he, waved the speech to a premature close and said, "I don't want to spoil your day. Please keep the tickets, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time." Looking at the man with an earpiece, he said, I'm sure I can find somewhere else to sit. I mean, this is pretty impressive for a Prime Minister, don't you think? Anyway, my mum and dad were shown back to the Prime Minister's seats and continued to apologise the whole way there about the trouble they'd caused. They were soon quietened by 2 glasses of champagne that magically appeared courtesy of the Australian Premier, and they settled down to the usual England collapse and Australian batting grit. On behalf of my father, I would like to seek forgiveness not to the Australian Prime Minister, who took it all in very good humour and could have the pick of the seats, nor to the rest of the posh members of the pavilion who were treated to a scene that probably still provides conversation in such circles. No, my father would like to seek forgiveness from the poor lady in the ticket booth, who probably got into a lot of hot water for handing over the tickets belonging to the most important person in Australia to a couple of Poms, a crime for which she may still be serving some time. Anyway, that's the tale about how David from Bristol's dad and mum were sitting where John Howard, the Australian Prime Minister, should actually have sat. I have to say, everyone comes out of this pretty well, but let's check in with Sister Susie in the pub. What do you say?
Oh, I really like that one. You know, fair play. You got some really nice seats. You met the Australian Prime Minister. Like, what more do you want? But am I the only one wondering what happened to his new best mate who promised him some tickets?
Good point. Yes.
Like, what happened? And also, how many glasses of wine or beers did Dad Howard have to buy to get him that? So I'm going to forgive.
Okay, everyone's
Howard
forgiven apart from the secret friend.
But yeah, apart from the secret friend.
What do you think, Brother Matthew? What are you saying on today's story?
Can it possibly be the case that you leave tickets for the Prime Minister just under their name at the window? Yeah, just under his name. We'll just leave them in an envelope with his name on them. Oh, well, I'll try that next time I need to get into a sporting venue, definitely. I'm obviously going to forgive, because this is, I mean, it's just a great tale, and as you say, everyone comes out of it well. And frankly, if there was a cricket test series to miss out on as an England cricket fan, it was that one, because it was woeful for England. So frankly, they've all suffered enough. So yeah, definitely forgiven.